Hey everyone, it's me. Hope you're feeling blessed and not stressed no matter where you are. What an ugly web we weave, at first when we do deceive. It's been a wild week. I've been tossed, turned, and reloaded. I've come ticks away to my dark side many times this week. And then I've had to tick myself back to the middle ground in order to reinitialize the fundamentals of why and who we are. Sometimes it's hard to fight for a human race that doesn't want to fight for itself. Humanity is under siege right now in so many ways. And I think fundamentally that's something that is the truest enemy that we have shaping all of the events, all of the chaos that we see around us everywhere. I have a hard time because I know that I sit with myself and I say, why, Lord? Why would I decide to come here? Why would I decide to be around a population of sleeping agents that have lost all sincere, fundamental understanding of what it is to be human in the first place, or the one love that Bob Marley spoke of so fondly, and the one love our Creator and Yeshua also rave about all the time. And in every single case I see around the world, every boiling pot, every situation, every chaos, the fundamental enemy ends up being that people are in a soul battle for humanity. We see this when, ICE agents rip away another Hispanic, and all the Hispanics do is film. Most people think it's not going to be them. They don't realize that the test is being brought to them at that moment when they see another brother go down. The enemy is not the ICE agent. The enemy is the commanding villainous chief that implores this euthanizing or sweeping of a populace to take place. And the individual soul conundrum becomes, what are you going to do when it's in front of you? And as I've seen, many just allow it to happen. 2 ICE agents against 20-something, 30-something Latinos filming. Why? Because it's okay to sacrifice that one Latino that day in order to save their own asses or to pretend that it won't be them tomorrow or their aunt or their uncle. Or when I see villainization of a religious background, I see these videos of everyone just going against Islam. In this one video I saw, a woman was like, can you believe that we have to listen to this call to prayer every day? And they put it on 5 times a day. Us Christians shouldn't have to abide by this and listen to this. This is so unchristian. And I wonder, in those moments when you say that, what type of Christian are you talking about? Are you talking about the self-righteous Christians? Are you talking about those that follow Christ? Because the Christ I know would not only have loved you as the audacious American stating that it's so un-American, or the self-righteous Christians that commented on it and saying, yes, we should get rid of them. He would have loved you. He would have loved them. And he also would have loved the Islamists devoting themselves to the call to prayer. When I lived in Morocco, I used to love listening to that call to prayer. It shows a real efficacy when it comes to devotion. Something that gets lost a lot in our day-to-day devotion. Even though it was like, Allah Akbar, I knew it was for Allah, but the Creator doesn't care what you call him, her anyways. Just that you devote that time to prayer and to sovereigns and to humility and to love. The love of the Creator for your existence. And I sat there, I put my 2 cents in, and I was like, well, I'll probably get yelled at for that because I don't fall into the category, I try to, just say, what would Jesus do? That should be most people's point blank response to anything, if they ever want to know what to do in a situation. Because it made me think, I was like, well, is it that she's saying they're American, or is it because she's saying they're Islamic? What's the problem? Was America not built up on immigrants? And is it not the melting pot in the land of the free? Or is it only free for some? I wonder. As these breakdowns happen all around the world, when police officers in England can take away their grandmothers and grandfathers or very elderly people for wearing signs saying, "Free the Palestinians, stop genocide." They're basically wearing signs saying, "We're fighting for humanity and free speech." And all these police officers that are being employed by these villainous heads within their own monarchy to strip the English people of their sovereignty and their rights. Does the issue or the soul test come down to the agent who's doing it at that moment as they read that rhetoric to that 80-year-old person, looking in their eyes and saying, "You're the same age as my grandma, and I'm still going to drag you away because I choose to sacrifice you today in order to save my own ass so that I will not be the one under fire, even though I don't see the enemy in front of me as not you per se, but really that employs me to strip you of your rights, because one day when I've done stripping all your rights, my rights might get taken too." I sit around sometimes and I look at different enemies, both domestic and foreign, all around us. And it's not to say, as someone who carries a lot of light, I've been a light bearer, light worker on this planet since the jump down. I mean, my jump off point was Orion. But I know that wherever I come from, this doesn't happen. I mean, my jump off point was Orion, but my soul is quite old. And it doesn't even have to be old, even babies and even young children understand these concepts. So, an old soul can be found in any size, shape, or form. And you don't need to be an old soul to understand and recognize humanity. But it seems to be something that eludes the people of this world so readily, so available. And in a sense, that shakes my idea of humanity, because I'm like, I'm here to be a freedom fighter and a person to try to wake up minds to this fact. And yet, at times, I'm just like appalled by the things I see. And I'm always just brought back to Yeshua. Every time I lose my way, I have to look to Yeshua. Because Yeshua came here not looking for grandeur, not looking for acceptance, not looking for applause or, to be adored or whatever the case may be. He was vilified and villainized by his own people. They all denounced him as the Messiah. No one stood up for him. He literally was just like that poor grandma getting, ripped away because everyone had to literally throw him under the bus. Why? Because at that time, the villain was the Romans. And the, Jewish people of that time readily gave away their culture and their background and their everything they stood for, just not to be put under the fire at that time too. And yet, in this day and age, that same rhetoric or that same reasoning is why, Zionists are like, we're the chosen. I think when you sell out once, I don't know if you can really call yourself, chosen after the fact. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like if you sell out to another culture and you don't uphold, there were some of their own scribes and their own prophets in that time. Like I think of Noah and I think of David and like what God asked them to do in the face of such darkness, in the face of such fear, in the face of such evil, in the face of so much ridicule and persecution. Noah just kept making that boat, or Gilgamesh, whichever person you want to call him, but still doing it for the righteousness of the human race. And the same as David, just getting the courage to be that little boy that just flung that stone at that big old giant, really scary, hairy fear must have been permeating through their core. And, later in their culture, when the time came that their Messiah was presented to them, they quivered and shook at the hand of the Romans, much like we do today. The Roman Empire is all around us in many shapes and forms. We are selling our souls one by one. And it's not just foreign, it's domestic, When we separate ourselves, when we divide ourselves, when we give in to the bigger heads manipulating us like cattle and creating these illusions and these fears that, these are the enemies, that guy's the enemy, this culture is the enemy, they're the enemies, and every part of your constitution gets ripped away piece by piece when everything is stripped away and you feel empowered to go after an enemy that doesn't exist, when the ultimate enemy was that you sold out humanity. Who is to be tested and who is to be judged? That becomes the question. So I know that when I was losing sight of why I do what I do, I was being called into question, because I had to say to myself that Jesus didn't lose faith in the Jews. Jesus didn't look badly on the Jews. Jesus didn't look badly on the Romans. Jesus just loved everyone and knew that they were not fully understanding the gravity of the decisions they were making. This form of compassion that is so profound. And that's what I had to do this last week. I had to ground myself again into the middle way. Finding compassion for humanity in a world that seems like it's so poisoned at times. And when I asked Yeshua, please, I ask you, show me some freshness, show me a person or persons that, fight for this. I see them everywhere. We're everywhere. And I will say that I'm so much of a fan of Greta. And if you don't know who she is, she's one of the major activists for the flotilla movement, that tried to bring all those fleets to Gaza and is continuing to. She got arrested and she was put through the grinder a bit. She was made to drink toilet water and perform propaganda with Israeli flags on her and defiled. I hope not sexually, for that matter. Who knows what she went through in those days. But all I know is I watched that woman come on and do her speech. And she didn't get mad at the Israeli soldiers. She didn't get mad at Netanyahu. She didn't get mad at the Israeli people. All she did was do a call out to everyone for their dehumanization of the Palestinian people and those in Sudan and those in Ghana. And all she was saying was that her movements, or why she does what she does, is because she wants to bring that simple truth back to all of us, that we are human and we must treat people as such. We must treat people, and we should be ashamed that we even allow this to happen. And it's not to say that people around the world are not fighting. Italy, all the fleets that came from Spain, from, North Africa, that came from East Africa, that came from Asia, etc. There's so many people fighting for this humanization. And I just want to say that Yeshua always taught us so much. He wasn't about glorification. He was about ascension. He was about teaching others how to ascend, how to find God within themselves. And I had to come back to that moment in time where I was like, this is why I came here, even though I have a hard time, because where I come from, it doesn't exist. This division and hatred and, sexism and racism and all of that. How are you racist when you're interstellar? You know what I mean? No wonder the aliens don't really want to show a face, even though they're here. They probably just don't think we have the capacity yet to even, accept them. We're automatically going to make them a villain and an enemy as well. And that's probably why they steer clear of really exposing themselves, because even though as enlightened as they are and how much capacity and compassion they have in their conscious, dimensional states, they know better, because they know that we're still struggling with these fundamental aspects of love. How hard it is for us to find empathy for our neighbor and our brothers and our sisters. And if you don't understand that we are all more interconnected than anything else, is what is being lost and missed in this world most of the time. Because I know that when I get into these darker sides of myself, it's not only to do with the big lunar cycles that are happening for some reason. The darker side of me comes out a bit more, where I'm just like, forget these humans. Why did I come here? I have to irk my, back to the light, because realistically, Yeshua never lost sight of that. And he is always going to be my Messiah. He is always going to be the ascended master that I want to course through my veins. He's probably the only man I've ever admired in my entire life. And not for nothing. I mean, I do have very many aspects that are intergalactic. They also revere him too. So it is so much to say that we have to realize that at some point we have to drop all of these frameworks that we're taught and shown are the real villains and enemies, and really look at what the enemy is. The enemy is anyone that takes you away from humankind. Anyone who tells you that the enemy is foreign and or domestic. Like, for example, when I saw that all the generals were being called back to the States, and then I was just like, oh, that's not good. I was like, what's going to take place now? Is it going to be martial law? Is it going to be employing them in a domestic sense, in a state sense? What are the domestic enemies they're going to create now? And I just want to say that if you are someone who has to be commanded to find an enemy that isn't presently available, you know what I mean? That realistically has to be sold to you or employed to you and really isn't doing anything in the day-to-day, meaning that you're going to be employed to, go after people for freedom of speech or freedom to act or freedom of being. You're really not seeing that the true enemy is that which employs you to degrade the fundamentals of your constitution so that all persons, including yourselves, will end up not having any rights to speak of because you basically dissolved all the persons that were willing to speak out about it against these larger villains or enemies. Just saying. And it worries me because I know that there were some that were really, getting kicked out of the White House for finding that humanity and praising and praying that the other commanders find that humanity within themselves too. So I know that there are even light workers within those core foundational military complexes. So the wars even within their complex and the wars even in our cities, in our country, in our community, and we find them everywhere online, and it's all these boiling pots all wrestling on the burners of life in this world that we live in. And what I do know is that each individual light worker, each individual human that knows what the core essentials are, or the fundamentals of humanity, is called to ascend or help those ascend to this fact, this reality. You don't have to read a book to know what humanity is, to know that you can empathize with somebody losing their family, you can empathize with somebody starving, you can empathize with rights being stripped away in any way, shape, or form. And all of us will be asked to solve the boiling pot situation in any walk of life. And I think about Yeshua all the time because in his day, he was persecuted everywhere. And then at the same time, he didn't hate anyone. He loved everyone. And he didn't sacrifice anyone to save his own ass. He only sacrificed himself. And as someone who's been sacrificed more times than I can even count, I've been laid waste. I've been thrown under buses. I know that all those times I was standing firm in his firmament. I only hope that when these bigger boiling pots come to my door, because I know here in Canada, we've had bills passed. There's going to be a lot of immigrants stripped away of their Canadian citizenship. There's going to be a lot of rights taken away from us Canadians. And I know that I go to rallies and different things when I can, but I know that I hope that I'm not a filmer, that I'm an actor. I like to act in the participation of this change. And the change is just to help people realize that we have to fight for humanity in every way, shape, and form because we're all human, And you would think that this is such a simple principle, but it is one of the hardest principles for any of us in this human form to actually encompass, because we spend all our time separating ourselves, woman, man, whatever identity we want to find in ourselves, and then whatever race issues we have, or whatever societal issues we have, and it's just separation, divide. And it's just such an illusion, because all it's doing is just pulling more wool over our eyes, giving us another reason to fight that person, another reason to fight this person, another reason to fight that cause that has no end. But really, we're not realizing that when all of our liberties get stripped away, when all of our humanness gets stripped away, we are no better than cattle. We are no better than, the animals in the animal kingdom. understand this fundamental love. It's astounding how we can see ourselves as greater than, but really a cat can get along with a dog. A wolf can get along with a sheep, given the right context or the right situation. A bear can get along with a lion. Like, they all can, at some point in time, because if it is for the greater good, meaning for example, when, what was it, Yosemite Park, or was erupting, all of these animals that should be eating themselves were really just herding themselves together and working together to get out of the danger. Because fundamentally, they knew that all of their lives are in danger and they all were helping each other do it. They weren't saying, oh, you're my enemy right now and I should be eating you. No, they were helping each other. Like, those that could swim were helping others that couldn't swim. And those that could fly were carrying those that couldn't swim. And if you ever watch that video, you'll see where we go so wrong as a species, because we just genuinely, it just washes over us like as if it doesn't make any sense. But there's a video to help us understand that we are all inclusive in this race. And the more time that the puppeteers have to divide us all, and the more time that the powers that be try to strip away our Christed essence that is fueled and in all of our veins and should be in all of our veins, that darker power gains momentum. Every time we say it's not going to be us and it's okay that it's them, I don't have to stand up, it's not me, we lose something. You know what I mean? Because realistically, one day when it is you, there's only going to be 20 filmers and no one's going to be there to help you. And is that the world we want to live in? Or should we live in a world where we don't, carry our elderly away for having a voice, or we don't get hired to militarize a domestic issue that is maybe not an issue? It all boils down to this fundamental. And as these boiling pots occur, we have certain players, or let's say bullies on the playground, especially one who's just really taking a shine to being a bully, a big bully in a certain region. As the other bullies in the playground realize that this one bully will not stand down, there may be some more altercations coming, because mostly what I know about bullies and enemies and things of that nature is that they all strive for one thing, an egoic sense of power. And they're not going to let one bully take over all the power in the playground. And they're all going to posture and say, I'm the biggest bully in all the biggest playground, and all of them are going to want to fight it out. And when that day comes, should it be sooner than later, we will have to fundamentally band together to survive. And not just that, there are so many different liberties getting taken away piece by piece by piece. With each country that's losing their cash and moving to a digital currency on the fly, and not realizing that this digitization is really just a grab for our identity as a human. Because should we not participate in this overhaul, then what will take place is that we will be shunned and pariahed out of society in the mainstream of what the societal norm will be, to buy groceries or to provide for ourselves, because we don't want to conform to another formation of a not pandemic or bio hacking or bio warfare style, but more of a Maslow's 5 requirements. It's like, we, not only is it identity, but it's also like a belief system, but then it's also like our security. And what this is a digital security warfare, where it's like, if you don't conform to this formation of new digital currency, then your security, which is a fundamental Maslow rubric of human existence, it's basically stripping you of what it is to formulate in a societal place. You won't be able to house, clothe, pay bills, etc. There are so many fundamental pressures that are all hitting us all at the same time. And as Yeshua was trying to teach us to ascend, that was his whole game plan. He did not come here for notoriety. He did not come here to be adored. He did not come here to be admired. His fundamental core reasoning for being here was to wake people up to ascension, to wake people up to something bigger than themselves, to the God essence and spark that is within themselves, to know that they are more, to know that they have power within oneself, within the whole, within the all. And that God spark that we all possess is truly where the power comes and lies. And that united power is really how we make it through. He wasn't just trying to show people his own sacrifice. He was showing others how to sacrifice themselves for the greater good, for the bigger game ahead. He was like, here's how you do it. And if you can do it when the true enemy or when the real supposed evil arises, the big evil arises, when all of the world is being tried to be taken over by the Roman Empire, so to speak, are you going to knuckle under or are you going to rise? Are you going to find that essence that he has been trying to instill in us since his passing? And most of us light bearers, or those who call themselves chosen or star seeds or whatever the case may be, you know that you've been missioned to do this. That, yeah, sure, we may not be adored. Yeah, sure, us truth tellers get told off left, right, and center. But the whole point is that hopefully we'll wake up one other person or 10 other people or 100 other people. It doesn't matter if we're adored. It doesn't matter if we're liked. If one person can see what we're saying and say, just follow Jesus's teachings, rise up, find discernment, fight for your brothers and sisters, fight for your humankind, fight for love. That is the key. That's all we're here for. There's no other bigger purpose. If you've ever wondered what your purpose is here, if you've ever felt like none of this makes sense, then be part of the solution. Change a mind. Change a way of being. Follow in his actual footsteps instead of just reading a bunch of verses and then dictating that Christianity is the supreme power. What kind of crock of crap is that? Jesus didn't start Christianity. He started love, compassion, understanding. That's what he started. And when we lose sight of that, there are even right now so many Islamists that are turning over to Jesus' side. There's so many Jews that are claiming Jesus as the Messiah as we speak, because it wasn't about Christianity. It was about the essence of the Christos consciousness, or the permeation of love within oneself, that he was the walk. He was the ascended master that showed us in the last 2,000 years. There have been other ascended masters that showcase this. We can use any one of their walks of life. It was the same, different background. Maybe only the reason why he stands out the most is because he sacrificed himself to show people how much of a, let's say, proverbial joke the powers that be are. Because he wasn't scared of them. He said, you know what? You want to take me out? Take me out. I'm not scared of you. I'm scared of my creator. I'm scared of not finishing my mission. I know what my ricochet in this world will be. And I pray that when my time comes to uphold his teachings and walk his walk, I know that I've had to do it many times, but when bigger boiling pots come to our door, can we do it? Can we embody it? That is my biggest dream and want, to actually, make him proud. To be like, I lived in your Christed idea. I lived in your Christed walk. I lived knowing that when my time comes, I can tell the Creator I did everything I could. There's probably he's the only man I've ever loved in my whole life, ever admired anyways, because he walked the walk. He didn't just talk the talk. Some would even say, someone like even Bob Marley, who just said one love, he understood it. He got it, I remember I went to one of his son's concerts and they were singing One Love. And you have to understand, there was like 12,000 people singing One Love all at the same time. Do you know how powerful that was? Where everyone was just swaying to the idea of love. It was amazing. Because he did it to song. And all of us are going to have to find our walk. All of us are going to have to find the way we bring Yeshua out in the forefront in our lives in these next years to come. Because I'm not a Debbie Downer, but I see the writings on the wall. All the bullies are figuring and posturing what the next moves will be. There isn't any time to decide which side you're on. When you are being asked to take down someone else, to save your own ass, that's your test. That's your time to shine. And, like I said, I know I'm not from here. Some days I wonder why I even do what I do, because sometimes the poisoned state of humanity scares me. But I think of him and I'm like, well, if he could do it in his situation, I can do it in my situation, or at least give it one more day, or at least put another foot forward. And that's the best any of us can do. Sure. I've remote viewed, I've astral traveled. You think I wouldn't want to go back to my Karian planet where I could just take my jaguar ass, run through the jungle as my fur just streamlines into feathers and I fly through the jungle? Yeah, I would. It's an amazing feeling. You think I don't want to just go back to Andromeda where everything's all, afloat and beautiful and crystalline and fuchsia? Yeah, I'd love to go and be my Syrian I know it sounds weird, but there's some aspects of myself that even if they're in the dark, I find that there's more, what's the word? Back in the time of the kings, when nobility. So even in Anunnaki or a Syrian, barge, like you could still find the nobility, like where you like would die for your cause. I miss that. I really miss that in this world, where people would die for the cause and for honor and things of that nature. Like I started losing respect for leaders the minute they got off the battlefield. I was like, if you're not willing to die with your people, then you're no king to me. You know what I mean? Or you're no leader to me. Because if my people are going to die, I'm going to go die with them. Or be victorious. You know what I mean? But I miss those days so much. There's a little Joan of Arc inside of me. Or a big Joan of Arc above me. But what I mean is, like, I know that I have these places that my soul, my oversoul encompasses. And even all of those aspects, they still bow down to the King Yeshua. Because his Christ of consciousness is what all astral beings strive to uphold as well. It is actually probably the parameter of a galactic nature. So for us to try to encompass this one simple action, which is to find love in all of those around us, no matter how much they're different, but really are the same. We really are the same. Because I don't know how many channelings I've done where literally we are all just reflections of each other. And I know when I get these like darker sided reflections at me, it's just because like something about me is slipping to the other side, because it's like, I find we have to try our best to stay in this middle ground of like, not so fluffy that, we lose sight of what's needing to be fought for, and not so dark that we want to annihilate. It's like finding this middle way. And, for those of you that may not find Christ to be your leader, maybe Buddha is, because he was a Bodhisattva that found that middle way. So if you want to know a different way of getting there, you could read all about him too. But I'm kind of rambling. But I'm just like, I'm at a place where I'm in these new chapters, and no matter what takes place, I just feel like I can't shake everything I see around me, where I'm just like, come on, guys. It's simple. It's our only way out. Our only way out is to stand up against oppression. Our only way out is to stand up against what's not right. Our only way out is to fight for these little injustices all around us, the micro injustice, the macro injustices. And to think that it's not going to be us is the big lie. To think that we don't have a place to be of use is a big lie, because not for nothing, God put us all here for a reason. And your reason is going to be different than my reason, but they're all reasons in the same right. And for all the, the domestic enemies and the foreign enemies, like if you're all confused, who or what someone is, it's like, you just have to remember, like, God put us here, or God put, let's say, for example, put me here. So if you're like hating on me for whatever reason, think about that. Whenever you're hating on someone, I don't even know what that word hate really is, because in my books, as understanding emotions, can't hate anybody, because you have to love them to hate them. To actually have that equation in a dualistic world, you have to love something so deeply that you can actually create hate. So really, you're just being motivated to find rage against a fictitious enemy that doesn't exist. If you really strip everything away, like, how can you hate something you don't know? How can you hate something you've never tried? How can you hate something that you've never even stepped into? Like that woman, go to a mosque and perform the call to prayer and let it permeate through your being, and then feel the rise of devotion that comes within you, and separate all the words and all the names and all the titles, and then explain to me how you could hate that, because it's beautiful. But that's what's taking place. Everyone is misleading and misunderstanding and not finding compassion for all the lost souls and participants at this time. And it's really not about finding our hatred or our anger or our, I know that I fall short with this compassion factor sometimes too, but realistically, it's like we can get mad, we can get outraged at the grand scheme of everything, but we can't solely individualize and direct hate, because it doesn't exist. How can you hate something you don't know? You can only hate them if you love them. That is a fact. There's not enough emotional backing to hate something if you don't love it. You've only hated your ex because you loved your ex so much at one point. If you didn't, you'd just be indifferent. You know what I mean? But people don't seem to understand that. It's like even people that don't like me, you know what I mean? I'm like, you've never even got to know me and you don't like me. You talk so much smack, about who I am or what I am. You never even sat down with me and had a convo or shared a meal. How can you hate me? You don't know me, and it's like, I don't hate you. I might talk a couple jokes here and there, but that's about it. I might, a little couple slice and dices just to see where your head's at, but I don't hate anyone. And if I do have any anger towards anyone, it's probably because I love them so dearly, and it angers me that we just don't get along. You know what I mean? That's all. But try to find more peace and try to find more love in your heart. That's the challenge. Because if it was that simple, we would have done it already. The actual challenge is trying to find love for others. Hate and rage and all that, they're lower-ended conscious emotions. They're so much easier and more tangible. The ego loves those emotions. The higher consciousness loves love. Transmuting, compassion, getting over all the things that you just don't understand. That's what I had to fight through this whole week, because I was like, how could people do this? My misunderstanding of not understanding that not everyone's where I'm from, or where my soul resides from, or they're, younger than me, or they haven't traveled as much as I have, or they haven't met as many cultures as I have, or they haven't sat with as many people as I have. And it's like, I feel like sometimes where I'm like, why is it that some of us get it and not the others? And then trying to find that compassion for the others. That's the real rub. That's the real coming to Jesus moment we all need to find. How do we love the Jews and the Romans all at the same time while sacrificing our ass? That's the true test. That's the real call to mastery that a lot of us are striving for. But even if you're not striving for mastery and you're just striving to do the right thing, you'll find it. It's going to be coming every which way. So my message to you is get prepared with the small to get ready for the big. Love you lots. Catch you next time.